Hi, welcome back. So by now, most of you know who I am. I'm Rachel with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. It is so nice to see all of you here and that you're making this a weekly part of your routine now. So we have a surprise. We're doing something a little bit different this time. We're shaking things up here and we're doing a special double header event tonight. So instead of you getting to meet one amazing progressive candidate, you get to meet two amazing progressive candidates. So we are beyond thrilled to have Jamaal Bowman running in New York's 16th Congressional District and Dana Balter running in New York's 24th Congressional District here with us tonight. Very quickly, most of you all are regulars, so you're familiar with this. But few programmatic notes. We always want these calls to be as engaging, interactive as possible. So please go ahead and flip your cameras on if you're comfortable with that, if they aren't already. When you're ready to ask your question, you can ask it at any point during this event. Feel free. You will go down to the middle of your screen. You'll see a chat icon, and you will find my name, Rachel PCC Host. It'll say Rachel PCC Host. Click on that. Send me your question at any point. When we start the Q&A portion, I'll call on your name, ask that you please unmute yourself, and then you can ask Jamaal and Dina your questions directly yourself. We'll be recording this, so in case you're joining us a little bit late or you have to jump off the middle, don't worry about it. I will make sure to follow up with the full video recording later. I ask that you please bear with me. There are so many amazing questions rolling in. My goal is to get through as many as possible, but if I don't, I promise that I will get back to you and connect you with this person on their teams to get your questions answered. So finally, as you know, these events don't cost anything, but we really hope if you feel excited by what you hear from Jamaal and Dana tonight, that you'll consider making a contribution to help fuel their campaigns. We'll make that super easy. We'll send you that in the chat box a few times throughout. Tonight is the pre-primary fundraising deadline, so any donations made before midnight tonight will be included in that total. So if that's something that you can do, we'd be grateful, and thank you for that. So thank you for considering that. And with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to our co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Taylor. Stephanie?
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our weekly Meet the Candidates call. As Rachel mentioned, we're excited to have a double header tonight with two awesome New York candidates. We're going to start by talking to Jamaal Bowman, and then the second half of the call will be speaking with Dana Balter. So I'll go ahead and introduce Jamaal first, and we'll hear from him first, and then I'll give Dana her own proper introduction in the second half of the call. I also wanted to start by taking a moment just to acknowledge this moment in our country, this hard moment in our country. Here at the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, we are thinking about how we can redouble our efforts for racial justice and equality, as well as to save our democracy. And for us, one of the answers, as it always is changing who holds power, and making sure that we are supporting candidates and endorsing candidates and electing candidates that share the real lived experiences of working people and oppressed people in this country, and who understand what it's like to live in real economic and physical danger in America every day. And so for that reason, we are thrilled today to introduce you to Jamaal Bowman, who is an extraordinary candidate running in New York 16. And he would be an extraordinary member of Congress. Jamaal is a public school teacher. He's a principal. He founded one of the highest performing New York City middle schools. And the last time I talked to Jamaal, he used a word that I keep coming back to right now, which is the word emergency. That working people in this country are in an emergency. We are in an emergency of high healthcare costs, high rent costs. We're in an emergency of danger from the police. And I think this week we have seen protests triggered by this sense of emergency, and Jamaal gets it. And that's why we need Jamaal's voice in Congress right now. And so Jamaal is running in a primary in New York. He's running against a Democratic incumbent, Eliot Engel. Just a word about Eliot Engel. He has taken more money from weapons manufacturers than 144 House Republicans. And he opposed Obama's Iran deal. And he hasn't been in his district in New York during a raging pandemic, in spite of the fact that he needs to be there. And as he said, it was kind of on a hot mic, oh, I'm in a primary, I have to care. I'm paraphrasing here. New York deserves better, and this district deserves better, and it deserves Jamaal Bowman. Progressives in New York have lined up behind him. The Working Families Party has endorsed, Justice Democrats have endorsed, the Sunrise Movement has endorsed. And so I'm so excited for you to get to know him too. And so with that, let me turn things over to Jamaal Bowman.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those kind words. Hello, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you this evening. I've worked in education for 20 years, and I've had the privilege of serving children from historically disenfranchised communities, schools that have been underfunded and under-resourced for decades, communities that lack the resources that allow children to develop and thrive outside of school. And after working in education for 8 years and seeing how that impacted my students, and seeing how in certain high schools throughout the city, students had to walk through metal detectors every day just to get into school. And in my 8th year in education, I was working as a dean of students, and my job was to monitor the metal detectors and capture students who were late to first period class in the cafeteria. And I felt more like a corrections officer and a police officer than I did an educator. And because of my personal experience in public schools and my personal experience with police, this enraged me at this point. So I wrote a proposal for a new district public school that I wanted to open, organized parents, teachers, and students around this idea. And in 2009, the Cornerstone Academy for Social Action Middle School was born. And our mission was to tap into the unlimited potential of our kids through the lens of social justice, teach them about history and poverty and culture and democracy so that they can feel empowered within our communities. And we were lucky enough to do great work while I was at that school. But unfortunately, kids still had to go into a community that was housing insecure, food insecure. They had to deal with criminal justice entanglements, lack of jobs, and just lack of hope. And for me, the turning point happened in 2017, 2018, when 34 children died within the K-12 school system in the Bronx, and 17 died via suicide. And right here in our district, a child was murdered by another child outside of New Rochelle High School, and a young girl, 9th grader, after being bullied in school, went to the top of a building in Co-op City and jumped off the building to commit suicide. And as an educator, we understand how trauma and poverty and bad policy intersect. When you create conditions of intense trauma, toxic stress, and chronic trauma, you're going to have outcomes that we've seen in communities for decades and what we're seeing now across the country. So after looking at our current congressperson who's been in office 31 years, and he's lived in Maryland for 27 of those years, not even in the district, and seeing how he continued to engage 7%, 8% of the district while neglecting the rest, and how he's never been a leader or fighter for racial and economic justice, we decided to get into the race, and we've been running an exciting race ever since. So I look forward, I'm excited to be endorsed by PCCC. As it was mentioned, we've been endorsed by the Justice Democrats, Make the Road Action, Sunrise Movement, and about 50 other individuals and organizations. So it's incredibly humbling to be here, very exciting. We are 20 days away from victory, and all the support you can provide would be amazing. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamaal. Okay, so our first question is from Dr. Jerry Bricks. Dr. Bricks, I'm coming to you now, and I'm muting you, sir. Mr. Bricks, what's your question for Jamaal?
I'd like to hear from Jamaal. What process would he recommend that the country follow in order to try and demilitarize our militarized police?
Mm-hmm. Well, we called at the very beginning to repeal and replace the crime bill, repeal the crime bill which Elliot Ingalls supported in 1994, led to the militarization of the police, the building of more prisons, private prisons in particular, truth and sentencing laws, 3 strikes you're out, and you're out laws, etc. So we call for the repeal of the crime bill. We call to defund local police departments in terms of the militarization. But we also call for higher standards in terms of recruiting, training, and retaining police officers, and reinvesting in our communities in public health areas like housing, healthcare, environmental justice, education, jobs, and resources. If you provide resources, including social workers, counselors, and mental health professionals where needed, we don't need as many police as we have right now. Unfortunately, our country has always invested more in military weaponry and punitive measures in our criminal justice system, as opposed to investing in well-being and public health. And that's what we're calling for throughout our campaign.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamaal. Up next, and thank you, Dr. Brooks. Up next, we have Amy Krakow. Amy, I'm going to go ahead and, oh, you're unmuted. Amy, what's your question for Jamaal?
You could help me with this, but I've been fortunate. I guess I should go public and say that I am a volunteer for Jamaal. So
thank you.
We've never met. And I don't live in his district, but I live right next door. And I could make this very interesting. And what I'll do is try to keep it very short. I got a phone call several months ago from somebody named Jamaal Bowman, who said he was running for Congress. And I said, huh? You're calling me? Wow, this is like so cool. Anyway, it is one of the greatest things to be called by someone who is running for Congress, because you realize that, like some of us grew up, we actually can talk to the people who we elect, even though in this day and age, that's not necessarily true. But my question is, I have been fortunate enough to speak with some of Jamaal's former students. And I have to tell you, this is one of, it is, I want to call more of them because it's amazing. Everyone that I have spoken to, and I've spoken to young men in their early 20s, have all said, Jamaal has made a huge difference in their lives, and he's had a very positive effect on them. And I was a school teacher at one point in my life, and I taught in a pretty depressed neighborhood in Brooklyn. What is it that you, and I don't know, I know their ages, but I don't know if you were a principal at that point, but I do know that when I was a kid, obviously going to the principal meant you were bad. And this is not what's happening now. What is it that you gave them personally, that the school that you started gave them personally? And is it something that could be trained to other educators? Because you've had an enormous effect on education. And no, nobody asked me to ask this question. This is truly personal, because these kids were speaking from the heart. And that's something that is, and I saw you smile when I was.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna make me get emotional. This will be my first time getting emotional on the Google Hangout. No, it's I mean, I love my students deeply. You know, I love the families that I serve deeply. And I love the community that I served. And I try to express that love every day in some way, shape, or form. And part of it is because I come from the same communities, and I used to say, you know, I am them and they are me. And we were symbiotic, you know, so I know what it's like to grow up without a father. I know what it's like to grow up without much money. I know what it's like to grow up black or brown in America. And every day I tried to be more than just an educator. I tried to be a father figure, a mentor, you know, the best teacher I could be, and really just remind them of their unlimited brilliance and potential, despite how often society wants to tell you or tell them that, you know, because you're black or brown, you know, this is not for you or you don't have power. I wanted them to know that they had power, and our collective power was through our collective love for each other and community. So that's the kind of educator I've tried to be for 20 years, and definitely over the last 10 years as middle school principal. And, you know, if we center love of humanity in everything that we do, and if we care deeply, things will fall into place politically. And unfortunately, our political system hasn't been like that for quite some time.
Great, thank you. Up next, we have a question coming in from our Facebook Live. Jamaal, what do you make from Joanne? Joanne asks, what do you make of the recent comment made by Elliot Engel to Black Lives Matter regarding not caring if it weren't an election year?
You know, it captures what we already knew, right? So when we started running for office, we heard that he doesn't even live in the district. He's not here. He's not engaged. And we heard very early that he was sending out more mailers and being more engaged because he was in a primary. So it was heartbreaking to hear. It was abhorrent that he would even think that or say that. And it captures everything that's wrong with our system. We have too many politicians who have been compromised by the wealthy elite, and we have a system that is more responsive to Wall Street and large corporations than they are to working people. And he's been in that system 31 years. So what he said revealed not just what we already knew about him, but what we've known about career politicians who are funded by corporate PACs for quite some time. And it hurt. It was heartbreaking to watch, but it revealed, I think, it was a powerful moment, I think, in this race, and for all of us and all on the outside who weren't aware of politicians who think and feel that way. So, you know, hopefully it's going to lead to dramatic change, not just in this race, but across the country.
Thank you, Jamaal. Okay, up next, we have Robert Frame. Robert, what is your question for Jamaal?
You know, my question is not actually about policy or what you might do in office, though I like your answer to making education maybe broader, more broadly in the way that you were talking about it. But we were reminded that the contribution deadline for FECA reports is tonight, and right away I thought to myself, why is it so important that those numbers bump up for a report? Would it matter if we actually donated to you next week? The money is there to use for the primary. So what is the, in your opinion, is there really value, and why is there value in these reporting deadlines and contributions by those deadlines?
I'm going to give you the answer that my finance director would give. You know, I try to be a good employee and a good student. He would say it's important because, you know, it's a day of reporting. It's a day when the numbers are made public. And as a campaign, we want to show strength as much as possible. If we could show strength and growth and support every day, it really matters. Having big numbers at the reporting deadline really matters. It also shows not just in terms of bottom line number, but amount of contributions that you've received. And if you get a lot of contributions, particularly small dollar contributions from all over the country, it shows the establishment that the progressives are for real. The progressives are in the fight to stay and in the fight to win. So that's why, you know, doing as well as we can during the filing day or before the filing day really matters. But to your point, yes, you know, if the money comes at any time, it's very helpful and great. But the filing days matter also because it also shows us what we have to work with. We don't know what we're going to have in the future. We know what we have right now. So hopefully my finance director will be very happy with that answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Jamaal. Okay, up next we have Miss Judith Hayes. Jamaal, Judith has a question about the Constitution and education. Judith, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute yourself. And Judith, what's your question for Jamaal?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. You didn't put me on camera, thank goodness. I'm in my pajamas here. Yes, Jamaal. I was born not too long after World War II. I'm 68, born in early 1952, and my parents were very strong Constitution people, you know. That was our day. And what I've seen so much of today, and I put down youth, but I'm also talking about a lot of people that are older that seem to have no idea whatsoever what is in the Constitution. And unfortunately, they do follow Trump, a great many of them, that I see. And I wish, you know, I think if they knew what the Constitution was about, they might kind of change their minds as to how they feel. I feel a lot more education needs to go on about how our government runs and why. And I got some fabulous books right now I'm trying to read about the Constitution, the beginning of it all. So I'm asking, what could or should this, where should it or could it fit into education, and what do you feel about the Constitution? Because I love the Constitution. I love this country.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, you know, I run a middle school. I used to run a middle school, grades 6 through 8. And we would have our 7th and 8th graders like memorize parts of the Constitution and recite them to their classmates. And that was our way of introducing them to the actual document of the Constitution, even though within our humanities curriculum, you know, it was very rooted in, you know, the historical context and the history of this country. But no, I'm with you 100%. And I think it needs to be more embedded in education, particularly at the high school level, and maybe be even part of a graduation requirement. And not just the Constitution, but how democracy works overall. You know, during my time in school, you know, I was very ignorant to how much of it worked because it wasn't a part of our education system. And, you know, over the last 20 years, since No Child Left Behind came into federal law, you know, because we've had a hyper focus on only English and math in grades 3 through 8 and standardized testing, we've taken so much of the important and rich learning out of the curriculum. So yes, I support that 100%. It's a part of our New Deal for education, civics education overall, and the Constitution would definitely be a part of that.
Thank you, Jamaal. Okay, I know Jamaal has to run soon, so I think I can sneak one more question in there. Sure. So I'm coming to you, Miss Alice Liu. Jamaal, Alice has a question about the Green New Deal. Alice, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute yourself. And Alice, what's your question for Jamaal?
Great. Hi, Jamaal. So my question is what do you see would be major challenges to implementing progressive policies when you're elected? And you know, I'm specifically interested in the Green New Deal, and also how would you handle those challenges? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So major challenge, the Republican Party overall, and too many Democrats who don't understand that we're living in a climate emergency. How I've handled challenges like this in education is find a common ground. So I've worked with parents and educators across the country to pass education policy. I've worked with more corporate Democrats and Republicans to pass proper education policy for our children. And it's about finding a space where people can meet on the inside, but also on the outside, continuing to build a movement and engage people grassroots organizing to push our politicians in the right direction in terms of progressive policy. Something that is very important in this district is lack of affordable housing. And we support a Green New Deal for public housing and investing in building new social housing units in alignment with net zero carbon emissions. So in our district here, that's something that across the board, regardless of background, people need and people support. At a federal level, I think something that everyone is going to support going forward is a federal jobs guarantee. I think a Green New Deal economy provides an opportunity for a federal jobs guarantee, particularly in the age of COVID, where we see those with upper respiratory illness are more likely to catch COVID. And as we know, those upper respiratory illnesses have been caused by environmental injustice throughout the country. So find a starting point, continue to speak truth to power, put a stake in the ground, and build organized organizations across the country, grassroots organizations across the country to get this done.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Jamaal. So Jamaal, we know you have to run soon. So let me just say, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave folks with before we say goodbye for now?
Yes. So thank you so much once again for the endorsement. The PCCC is amazing, amazing organization doing great work. So thank you for that endorsement. Just wanted to share again, tonight is a fundraising filing deadline. The final one before the election on June 23rd. So if anyone can contribute any amount of money, you could go to bowmanforcongress.com/donate. $1, $5, $10, $20, any amount is incredibly, incredibly helpful and appreciative. We still have a mail-in program, a postcard program, Facebook and social media ads. So still a lot of work to do. We're doing well. We're just not, we haven't won anything yet. So we got to keep pushing the envelope. So thank you for your support. Peace and love, everyone. bowmanforcongress.com/donate. And thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, Jamaal. And one more note, in the last 24 hours, progressives nationally have chipped in over 100,000 to Jamaal's campaign. He has momentum. This feels like, the momentum before AOC's win. Replacing a 30-year out-of-touch incumbent with Jamaal would send shockwaves through the establishment. This is a great race and there's momentum, so please chip in what you can. Thank you so much, Jamaal. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, Rachel, see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.